Look, I'm the people walking, the people talking.
My name's Anuska, and today I'm going to be talking a bit about the colonial history of the drug trade and how that still affects drug trade and policy today. Colonial powers viewed coca, opium, cannabis all as important commodities for the growth of their economy, and they exported them from their colonies worldwide, with the British even going to war with China twice in order to increase their opium trade and to prevent China from banning opium imports from India. Taking India as an example, opium trade grew from being a small, less than 1% part of their exports to accounting for 15% of the British revenue. This, however, died down later on, and the opium trade grew less profitable as prohibitionist policies increased. Prohibition was really perpetuated a lot by racist ideologies and association of opium and cannabis with Chinese, Mexican, and African people. And these ideologies helped shape international drug policy as well. It's interesting also that international drug policy at this time, so the early 20th century, which was decided on largely by European powers, didn't include other substances such as alcohol, since wine was a huge part of domestic trade for these European powers. Even coming up to kind of post-colonial times, more neo-colonial times per se, US officials have repeatedly intervened in the drug policies of other countries, preventing Mexico from moving away from prohibitionary policies in 1940. The US has facilitated the consolidation of drug trafficking organizations in countries such as Vietnam, Colombia, and Peru, in order to finance guerrilla fighters serving US interests in conflicts that have been going on in these nations. You can even see an example of this in Afghanistan, with the production of opium increasing 50-fold since the US's military occupation. The Philippines is known for having quite draconian drug laws, quite strong prohibitionary laws, and these laws are directly linked to laws put in place by American powers who took over the Philippines after the Spanish-American War. The drug trade has been linked to many Western banks as well, which are also profiting greatly from them, with the HSBC admitting to their role in laundering illicit cash and paying a fine of $2 billion, which seems like a lot, but actually it's a really small percentage of how much they've earned during this time. Another thing not considered currently when talking about the drug trade and drug policy are the rights of indigenous peoples. So the UN Drug Control Treaty regime, when it was established, they didn't mention indigenous peoples, even though many indigenous people cultures use the coca leaf or various other drugs as a part of their cultural practices. Policies regarding drug really don't take that into account, which can be very detrimental to farmers within these countries, people just trying to practice their culture. So policy making really needs to focus on more than decriminalisation and look at the history of drug trade and policy and the widespread consequences of the actions of drug policy. They also need to consider the socio-economic well-being of those involved in the drug trade at all levels, from the agricultural production to the distribution. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys got a bit of a bigger idea of how the history affects the present, and colonial history is so important in so many aspects of life, including drug trade and how it affects current international and in many countries national drug policy.
Standing up right in front of me, you talk to you.